You know those moments when you swipe through your feed and suddenly realize, oh, things are different now. Google just did that to AI image generation, and they didn't even bother to make a big announcement. No keynote, no dramatic countdown, nothing. They just quietly dropped a model called Nano Banana Pro, officially Gemini 3 Pro image, and now everyone who touches visuals is scrambling to catch up. This is not one of those turn me into an anime character filter your aunt still posts on Facebook. Nano Banana Pro is wired into live Google search. It's generating images that aren't just pretty, they're grounded in real current data with a level of consistency that makes older models look like beta tests. You can remake a centuries-old painting as a 2025 storyline, generate a realistic shot of a building from GPS coordinates, or throw a bunch of characters into one scene and have it look like a polished movie poster instead of a collage accident. And the first people who saw it were already throwing around phrases like AGI level reasoning, but for images. If you've been waiting for proof that AI just skipped a level, this might be it. So let's break down what this thing actually does, why it's so far ahead of the pack, and what that means for anyone trying to make content in 2025. The biggest shift with Nano Banana Pro is how it treats reality. Most AI image models are basically talented liars. They look at your prompt and think, I've seen something like this before, and then they just freestyle the rest. Sometimes it works, but sometimes you get 6 fingers on one hand. Nano Banana Pro plays a different game. The way it works is it pulls live from Google search. Ask it for an image of the bullpen on Wall Street with the current stock ticker displayed across the building. It doesn't just slap random digits on there. It actually looks up the real value at that moment and builds that into the image. Ask for a topographic map of Dallas. And instead of random buildings, you get something that genuinely resembles Dallas's layout. Sure, a distant skyline might wobble here and there, but the whole thing is anchored in real information. That's a different category of tool. Then you've got the storytelling demo, the one that got a lot of people to sit up straight. All right, so Google had Nano Banana Pro reimagine William Hogarth's A Rake's Progress, an old painting series about a man's rise and fall, but updated it to 2025. The results look like an entire modern morality play. First, with meme stocks, gig jobs, NFT phases, life extension labs, prison, burnout, eviction, and finally ending up in a kind of dopamine ward. Every panel looks like an illustrator spent days on it, but the key is the continuity. It's the same main character all the way through. The style just doesn't drift. The environments evolve in a way that makes sense. A little visual details echo from one scene to the next. And let's be real, most older models would absolutely fall apart trying to keep a single character consistent over many frames. Nano Banana Pro just does it. All right, now composition is another area where it feels like the model finally got the memo. Before this, if you asked an image model for a complex scene, it would usually give you everything everywhere all at once, but ugly. Subjects overlapped weirdly, focus was non-existent, and the whole thing looked like a thumbnail from 2019. Nano Banana Pro is much closer to a real art director. If you describe a cinematic poster with multiple subjects, layered lighting, and specific vibe, it doesn't panic. It arranges people where they make sense. It gives you a clear focal point, handles depth properly, and makes the lighting consistent. And then spatial awareness is another subtle but huge jump. Upload a photo of a cottage doorway and tell it to add a hedgehog on the ground with matching lighting and a man looking down at it. A few months ago, that instruction would have been a coin flip. You might get a hedgehog on the ceiling or none at all. But Nano Banana Pro puts that hedgehog right where a human would, aligns the shadows, keeps perspective correct, and adjusts the expressions on the man's face to match. The I can't believe it did that moment for a lot of people came with real data. You can upload a screenshot of your Google Analytics page and say, make the clicks 90,000 impressions, 1.2 million. and update the graph to match. And it actually does. The axes change, the curves shift, the ratio stays plausible. Same with tables. You can feed it benchmark numbers and ask for a comparison chart, and it builds one with the right categories and colors, not just some random infographic looking blob. That's not just pattern matching, that's actually understanding structure. On top of that, Nano Banana Pro finally feels like a tool you can steer. You're not just rolling the dice on a single prompt. You can tweak camera angles, play with the depth of field, change the time of day, or push the color grading towards whatever mood you want. You can mark or scribble on the specific areas to edit them. You want a hat, a guitar, and a cat, and have the guitar's reflection showing up correctly on the table? It can do that. It supports 2K and 4K, proper cinematic ratios, social formats, and all the stuff people actually need in the real world. This is the first time a mainstream image model genuinely feels like a hybrid of AI and real creative app instead of a party trick. Alright, all that's cool on paper, but what does it actually change for people making content? First, character and identity consistency is now something almost anyone can access. Nano Banana Pro can take up to 14 reference faces and blend them into a single scene while keeping everyone recognizable, even at odd angles. That's the kind of thing that used to live in VFX studios and big budget campaigns. Now you can make a giant group photo with consistent faces, lighting, and perspective from your laptop. The comic strip use case takes that to another level. Imagine you created a character 2 years ago in Midjourney, and you bring that image into Nano Banana Pro and ask it to make a 4-panel comic starring that character and a turtle with specific personalities and a punchline. It'll keep your character's core features, outfit, vibe, facial structure intact across all 4 panels. The turtle stays grumpy across the strip instead of switching moods randomly. The slang and voice in the speech bubbles stay consistent. When you tell it, cool, now give me a second story with the same duo but on a medieval ship, and they still feel like the same pair dropped into a new world. This level of continuity across scenes is something people have been begging for from AI art, and for the first time, it's actually working. Then there's world grounding. Paste in coordinates from Hong Kong, and you don't just get some generic city at night. You're gonna get the actual building at that spot, a skyline that fits that location, and a street layout that matches the neighborhood. Upload a floor plan, and it can generate interiors that line up with walls, doors, and weird corners correctly. Or upload a photo of an apartment, and it can sketch a floor plan that matches the real space. Older models tended to butcher this. You'd get impossible room shapes or doors that opened into nothing. But it can also break down complex physical objects too. Alright, let's slow down a little bit. We can't talk about this without talking about trust. Google isn't just firing off hyper-real images with no safeguard. They're embedding Synth ID, an invisible watermark, into every image Nano Banana Pro generates. You can take any suspect image, drop it into the Gemini app, and ask it, did your model make this? Free tier outputs even get visible watermarking slapped onto them unless you're in a higher or developer mode. As AI generated images get harder and harder to distinguish from reality, this layer of traceability is a big deal for platforms, for newsrooms, and honestly just for regular people trying not to get completely gaslit by fake visuals. The power here comes with the cost and speed trade-offs too. Running Gemini 3 Pro image at full strength is not cheap. At high resolutions, it's around 7 to 8 times the cost of the original Nano, and 3 to 4 times more at medium resolution. And it's also not the absolute fastest model on Earth. But if you compare it to OpenAI's highest quality image tools, Nano Banana Pro still often ends up cheaper for the quality you're getting. If you care more about accuracy, storytelling, and real-world grounding that's shaving every millisecond off your response time, it makes sense. Of course, it has its weak spots. Clocks are still cursed. If you asked for a super specific time on watch or wall clocks, expect something kind of close more than pixel perfect. Ultra rare animals or very niche biological details can trip it up. It often gets the family right, but the specifics wrong. These seem like small issues, but when the rest of the image looks flawless, tiny inaccuracies can sneak by unless you're paying attention. That's the core tension with Nano Banana Pro. It's good enough that you want to trust it, but still imperfect enough that you really shouldn't, at least not blindly. Nano Banana Pro isn't just the latest image model. It's a line in the sand. Live Google search grounding instead of guessing, real spatial reasoning instead of flat pattern hacks, and high-res images you can actually direct, edit, and reuse. It's a different tier. It's not flawless. It costs more than older tools, and it still makes small but meaningful mistakes. But right now, there's basically nothing else that combines this level of realism, control, factual grounding, and creative flexibility in one tool you can actually access. This is what next-gen AI looks like. Part artist, part data analyst, part world simulator. If this helps you wrap your head around what just landed and why everyone in AI is suddenly paying attention, hit the like button, subscribe, and stick around for more. Nano Banana Pro is not the end of the story. It's the opening chapter of how we're going to build and question images from here on out. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.